Hello, my lovelies. Welcome back to my channel. I am Kelly Lee. I talk about everything spirituality and witchcraft that I do in my everyday life, as well as aromatherapy, herbalism, and of course, tarot. Today is something of a little bit of a different topic. As I have said before, I do work in the corporate world. I am an HR specialist. With a Disability One company. And I thought I could just talk about and give my thoughts on being a witch / pagan in a corporate setting. So I have been working in the HR world for over a decade. So I feel like I have enough credibility and enough experience to speak on this subject. So first thing I'm going to talk about is the actual law itself that protects our religious rights, and it is the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And I'm literally going to read what it states. It was updated in 2023 in Groff versus DeJoy in the Supreme Court ruling requiring employees to provide reasonable religious accommodations for sincerely held beliefs. Now, it says employers may not discriminate, harass, or force participation in religious activities, protecting individuals from all faiths, including atheists, and require employees to consider all accommodation options, not just the easiest ones. So what that means is that employers are legally required to provide reasonable accommodations to support your religious requests. So most of the major holidays, major anything that we get off here in the United States of America are Christian-based holidays, whether that be Easter, Christmas, Good Friday, things like that. Most of them are Christian-based. So like for me, I always take Halloween off. If it falls, like during the week, I take that day off, maybe the day after, because I have a lot of spiritual things that I do on Halloween. Just like for, the Jewish community or, the Muslim community, they have a lot of religious holidays and religious times that they do things that is not seen and accommodated for. So just as an example, back when I worked for Amazon, where I was an HR specialist, they have a large population of Muslim followers, and during a certain point in the year, I will not speak on the semantics of this because I am not a Muslim, but they are required to pray certain times a day. So Amazon accommodated them and let them know, that they could go pray whenever they needed to. And most Amazon facilities do have rooms and offices that people can go to if they need privacy for such things. But they did allow them, they had reasonable accommodations. And when I say reasonable accommodations, that also means your employer has to give accommodations to you unless those accommodations will cause undue hardship to the company itself. Now, undue hardship is you want to take 2 months off for, a religious purpose, right? Sorry, I had to pause that for a second. You want to take off like 2 months for a religious purpose. That is going to cause probably undue hardship to your employer, having to fill your duties and having to maybe train someone else to fulfill your duties. So that could be considered undue hardship. Or say you work on an assembly line and you work near machinery. They employers cannot allow you to wear dangling necklaces or, things that could get caught in the machinery. They cannot do that. So things like that is what your employer would consider, like undue hardship. And of course, undue hardship is left up to the employer themselves, and they have the final say on whether they can accommodate your request or not. So, non-discrimination. You cannot be fired, demoted, or disciplined for your religion or lack thereof, and no forced participation. You can't be forced to join or refrain from religious activities as a condition of employment. Okay. What is protected? So the broad definition of religion includes traditional faiths, uncommon beliefs, new religions, and even atheist or non-religious viewpoints, as long as they are sincerely held. Beliefs and practices covers worship, prayer, religious holidays, dress, example, hijabs or yarmulkes, hairstyles, dreadlocks, uncut hair, and dietary needs. Now, when I say as long as they are sincerely held, now that is something that an employer cannot decide for you. If they cannot tell you what your religion entails. They cannot tell you what your spiritual beliefs encompass, right? But as long as you sincerely hold those beliefs and you sincerely hold to those, whatever you have, taken it upon yourself to include in your religion or spirituality, they cannot tell you that that is either not acceptable or that, like they don't believe you. They cannot do that. And if you are ever discriminated against based on religion, based on lack thereof, based on anything to do with your perceived spirituality, religion, beliefs, all of that, what you can do is, if you are denied for any, like reasonable accommodation, or you feel like you have been discriminated against in your workplace based on your religion, and when you go to report these findings, you feel that nothing is handled, things are not getting better, because we always want you to go to your employer's HR, go to your employer's higher ups, right? But if you feel that the situation itself has not been handled appropriately, has not been handled to your satisfaction, has not been handled in a way that you are comfortable with, you can always call the EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and you can call them, you can make a report, and the EEOC will get into contact with your employer and tell them that a report has been filed. And from there, it is legalities between the EEOC and your employer basically has to prove that what they did handled the situation correctly, right? So they will investigate it, they will look into it. If they find that the situation wasn't handled correctly, the employer will be reprimanded and will have repercussions. Okay. So that is the broad legality of being a witch / pagan / what have you, or just holding some other religious belief in a workplace. But because I am a human resources specialist, I do have my own office. I deal with, in our site, we have 160, give or take, employees that I help and I deal with, and I help in situations and I talk to and I have interactions with every single day. So in my office, how I let my witchiness come out without it being like overtly, because again, we want this to be whatever you are comfortable with and whatever level you know, that you are comfortable with people seeing. So like me, I have crystals on my desk. I have little like crochet animals and stuff that I love that I associate, you know, like with certain things. The background on my computer is very like it's a very witchy, herbally tarot collage that I made, that I put on the back of on, you know, my background on my computer. I have aura sprays and I have oils and things that I keep at my desk, that I use if I feel, you know, feel the need to do so. Let's see, pictures. I have certain pictures because I have a little like a cork board thing on my desk. I put certain pictures and things up there that helps me, you know, connect spiritually to things. But of course, because I do have those things on my desk, there are people who ask about them, who make comments about them. And for the most part, I am pretty open if people ask me about it. I don't just go up to everyone and just say, oh, I'm a witch, I'm a witch. But if someone comes to me in genuine just curiosity and genuinely just wants to learn and know, I'm very upfront front and open about it. I will talk about my crystals. I will talk about, you know, my tarot deck that I always carry with me. I will talk about, you know, like all the things. I will answer questions. I will do, you know, like all the things. But of course, we're working in corporate. I have the opposite as well. I have people who will come to me and tell me that it's not okay and it's not right. But being in HR, I know how to shut that down. I know how to tell them, we are not going to discuss this. We are not going to discuss my spiritual beliefs as well as your spiritual beliefs. We're not going to talk about it, especially if you come at me from a negative standpoint. I respect what religious beliefs you hold, and I ask the same from you that you respect mine. And if it goes further than that, if it continues to be negative, if it continues to be derogatory or threatening, then other steps can be taken. But I did just want to talk about a few situations that I have been in, where my spiritual beliefs were not respected. Let's say that. When I turned down a gift with a cross on it, so there was an older woman who was walking around and she was giving out these little like things that she had made, and just, you know, asking people if they wanted one, and, you know, just like saying, you know, saying that she would pray for people, you know, whatever. She approached me and I politely said, no, thank you. I would rather, you know, like not take that. And also, if you want to pray for me, that's fine, but don't. Just because I find that very uncomfortable, someone coming up to me and saying, I'll pray for you. Like what I don't know. I just take that very negatively, and some random everyday just approach some stranger and say that, right? She got very upset. She left, and someone who had been witness to the interaction, they came up to me and said, why couldn't you have just taken the cross, you know, and like, you know, the little thing, why not just take it? Why cause, you know, da 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 da? And I said, because it's not my belief, and it's not something that, like, I would never just hand out and give, you know, I follow the Morgan. I would never just hand out pamphlets on the Morgan to strangers that I had never met. I would never do that. And to me, accepting that gift is just enabling them to do, you know, to just like do these things. And do I think that she held, you know, like a negative or, you know, deceptive intention behind it? No. But also, I'm not going to accept something that I don't want. Also, just being confronted about my beliefs. When I was hired at a past job, they had, even though my Facebook and things, like are private, I do live in a little bit of a like smaller-ish area, so people know people. And it was talked about before I even started that, oh, she's a witch, she's a witch, she's a witch. And when I started, it was told to me that it would be best if I don't talk about my beliefs, I don't broadcast it, because certain people are very uncomfortable with it. And I said, I'm not going to, broadcast it. I'm not going to just shout it from the rooftops, but I'm also not going to hide it either. Like, this is a very deeply important part of me, and I'm not going to hide it. And she said, well, some people are going to be offended. And I said, they can be offended. I said, because I don't say anything when I see people with crosses, people handing out crosses, people with Jesus t-shirts, people, just like quoting Bible verses at me. I don't say anything, because those are their, or I don't say anything, like negatively, because those are beliefs that they hold. So the same respect should be given to me, right? Just because you don't understand it doesn't mean that I don't get to talk about it when asked. So those are just a few of my experiences I've had. I have been very out and about with my witchiness for quite some time, just because I'm not going to hide who I am. I'm not going to stop, my beliefs. I'm not going to be shamed or frightened for what I believe in. It's just not going to happen. So I've gotten very good, because I have worked in HR for so long. Excuse me. I have gotten very good at calming people down and, confronting people, but doing it in a way, that like helps to alleviate the situation, maybe. I've just gotten very good at it. So I just wanted to impart just some stories and some things, and just to let you know that if you don't want to hide in your workplace, you don't have to, and there are avenues that you can take if you feel that you are being discriminated against or anything like that. If you want to talk about it down in the comments, or if you want to private message me about, like a scenario or situation, that's going on, I can provide advice or guidance on that. I will also include the phone number for the EEOC down below, just in case if you want to report something, right? But something that I have found that is very nice is there's always the people in your workplace who either believe the same as you or similar, or aren't bothered by yours. Because there are a few, even now, that I can sit down and have discussions with and have talks with, and we can talk about things, and it's a good conversation, it's a good back and forth, and I very much enjoy those. So those are the people that make it a little easier to be a witch in a corporate setting. That's all I got for you today. If you want me to talk more on this, I probably could. I could probably work up a couple other things to talk about. But just let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you want to talk about a situation or scenario, and I will get back with you. But other than that, blessings and growth. I wish you nothing but the best. Thank you for stopping by, stopping in and watching. Do all the things, subscribe, like, all that. And I will see you next time. Bye.